Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jared and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome everybody to today's episode. Delighted to have a special guest with us today. We have Sandra Lewin from the 100 Women in Insurance podcast. How are you, Sandra?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Another professional podcaster, so we're excited to have this discussion with you. But we'd love to dive into how you got into reinsurance or insurance, our favorite starting point for these conversations.
Yeah, sure. So I fit into that group of people that actually had family working in insurance. But I actually rebelled against insurance for a couple of years. So, to my family, there was no other job but insurance. I'm from Poland. I came to UK when I was 16, went to the school here, so did my sixth form, and then stayed for university. And then after uni, it was kind of like, well, you're going to go into insurance. And I said, no, I'm going to do something else. So for 2.5 years, I tried things. And then I was like, fine, I'm going to go into this insurance thing. It sounds so much better than everything else that I tried. Yeah. So I got into broking, and that's how my career started. Heavy industry. So as one underwriter once said to me, I brought him another risk, and he sort of looked at me and went, they really don't like you there, do they? The stuff that you bring me, these are hard stuff, right? It's like, don't you have something easy? But it was good because it was right into deep water, right? So it was complex risks. It was, it was a fact reinsurance. So it was always thinking about the insurance product and then looking for the reinsurance. It was bids. It was international. So it wasn't only Lloyd's market. It was the international market as well. So it was really exciting. I did some of the risks that I used to play as coal mine. I even got to go down the coal mine, right? Oh, wow. Yeah. And I remember sitting there, a surveyor was sort of sitting and planning where we're going to go and what we're going to see. And someone said, oh, there's a deep there and there's a threat of gas over there. And he's like, right, we're going to go there. And me and another broker like, no, we're not. We are so not going there. So it was really, really interesting. And then a few years in, I kind of been thinking, so by that time I've been in the UK for over 10 years. And I thought, well, let me go back. At that time, my stepdad, who is a reinsurance broker in Poland, he was opening a cover holder. They were starting a new broker. So he was like, come around and it sounded like a great idea. I lasted 3 months. Wow. Yeah. And I moved back to UK again. This was the first time when I kind of realized the power of personal brand. It was really interesting because when I was leaving UK, I kind of gone around the market and I said to the underwriters, I won't be here anymore. I'm going back home. And they were like, why? Why would you do that? Let us help you find something else. What do you want to do? And it was so amazing to see how the market actually works, where you get those connections. They're like, right, meet with this broker, meet with this person, find what else is out there. And that's why I also opened my eyes to thinking there are so many opportunities in insurance. We're just not necessarily always aware of that. So when I came back, I had this opportunity to either go to one of the big brokers and continue kind of my path as a broker, or join Lloyd's. And I remember sitting down with a very senior broker in the market, and I was like, oh, which one do I choose, right? Because the perception is that I should go down the broking route. Yeah. Like that is the thing that we all kind of think that's the career you should be. If you want it, you should be sticking to it. And we kind of talked about my various skills, and we talked about what I want to do with my career. And I've decided that Lloyd's was actually the right choice. And I've joined Lloyd's. I've joined as a junior analyst. That was the role, so something completely different. But really the role was about working with the country managers across EMEA region and thinking of what products can be kind of sold locally, what does sell well in Spain, why do we not sell it in France? So working with brokers and underwriters and local and in London to try and use data to try and understand, you know, the various trends. This was just the beginning of like idea of using data for that kind of elements.
Very cool.
But then
I had a really similar situation,
Did you?
actually, funnily enough. So the Lloyd's Aon decision for me, it was because hilariously, I moved from Lloyd's to Aon just as my younger brother, who is now a history teacher, by the way, is pursuing his own passion, was applying for grad schemes. And he got an offer from each of Lloyd's and Aon.
Right.
And thought, well, my brother's at Lloyd's, so I'll go to Aon. And I think we both sort of called home the family on the same day and said, moving to Aon. We found out, oh dear, we've both joined the same company. So we would awkwardly see each other in the lifts and things in the Aon building and be like, oh, what have we done? But it was fine. It was
That's
good
brilliant.
fun.
But it is those moments, right? They really kind of, I mean, you can always break away, but those moments are quite important where you go. And I think that's the beauty of insurance, because I could have still probably gone back to broking if I wanted to a few years in.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, my time at Lloyd's, I was there for 6 years, and it sounds bigger than it is, but I got promoted 5 times, but that's because my title was constantly changing and I was constantly kind of like pushing, and there was a lot of change going on. But I would say my first 2 years was all about working with country managers. I got to travel so much across Europe. It was brilliant. I got to learn about pretty much every class of business. So that was really exciting. And then Brexit happened.
Yeah.
And if anyone is familiar with what Lloyd's had to go through because of Brexit, but as well so many other companies, I was asked to join the Brexit team. And one of the main reasons was actually because we had to build this insurance company from ground within like 18 months, right? Unheard of. And you know, we were building with the market, and actually I was one of the people that used to go around the market with the slip and used to really think, you know, I would sit in the room going, I know theoretically that works, but in practice, you know, it works differently. So that's where, again, I kind of had this pivotal moment in my life that every step of my career, even though it's changed and shifted so many times, it really come handy at different stages later on. So Brexit was a big part of my career journey.
Are you a linguist, by the way? I'm wondering if you're having to run around all these countries and so on.
No. I mean, I speak Polish and English. Yeah. Do you know what? It's a bit of a sad thing to admit. So before coming to UK, like in Poland, the fact that you study English, that's just given, right? Yeah. All my friends speak at least second or third language, right? That's the thing you do. Yeah. So when I moved to UK, I could speak a bit of German, I could speak pretty good Spanish, and I could speak English and Polish.
I mean, that's very impressive by English standards, to be honest with you.
Well, that's it. I landed in the UK. I did my kind of equivalent of A-levels in Spanish. And then, you know, English and Polish are my only 2 languages now. Because people don't want to, especially if you start speaking English, where you know, a lot of people can hear that my language is, as people say, weird, and they're like, where do I place it? But for someone who English is second language, I don't sound necessarily, you know, for them, I tend to sound English. So they just want to speak English with you. It's the problem that everyone has here, right? So, yeah, I'm not.
Jared's learning Japanese at the moment, aren't you?
Are you?
It's very difficult.
I mean, put it out there. That's a difficult.
Go rogue, go big or go home, I guess is the saying.
Wow. How long have you been doing that?
A year and a bit. So it's slow going, but it's interesting. I find it culturally interesting.
Yeah.
It sort of opens exposures to like the nuance of, I think language unlocks a lot of interesting elements of culture.
That's
it. So I think it's a really fascinating thing to sort of explore.
Yeah.
But you're also a multilinguist.
Working on it. No, my wife is French.
Right.
But I studied German. So I'm desperately trying to move them up in parallel, because for a number of years they were sort of just kicking each other out of the way. So I'm now trying to learn French in German and German in French, so that the two are more interchangeable.
Yeah.
But they are two different languages,
Very
right?
different.
So it's not like
Yeah.
French and Italian or something like
No,
that.
exactly.
So
Which
that's
at least
good
makes
challenge.
it harder to confuse them, I'm hoping.
True.
But all the same, it is,
Yeah.
it's a bit of effort.
Yeah.
But it's good.
It's good to learn, right? I think languages are brilliant.
Yeah.
So definitely.
So you built Lloyd's Brussels at this point?
Yeah, on my own, pretty much
Yeah.
done.
Single-handedly,
Yeah. No shout outs to anyone here. It is me on my own. It's running. And then so one of the things that whilst all this amazing stuff are happening career wise, I actually am suffering with something called endometriosis, which is a health condition that many women suffer with. I don't actually know how much I'm suffering with it, because by that point it's 17 years of me living with that condition, but it's getting really bad. And it's getting to a point where I'm like literally barely functioning. Lloyd's is absolutely incredible. Because I'm working on a Brexit program, we actually worked remotely before even COVID already, because I would travel to Belgium a lot. There's loads of stuff happening, so that this remote flexible working is already operating, which is helping me. But anyway, the condition is getting really bad, and it's about a year of actually finding the right doctor. COVID happens, my operation gets cancelled in Poland. I then finally find a doctor actually in the UK. And it turns out that my condition is so complex that I have to take some time out to have an operation. So I'm like, yeah, fine. We estimate 2 months off. Okay, no problem. Over summer, COVID, fine, I'll do that. And it ends up being 6 months, 2 operations, a really lengthy recovery, kind of like learning to walk again kind of thing. And during that time, I'm sitting on my phone a lot. There's only so much Netflix I could watch. So I'm a lot on social media. I'm discovering this world of podcasts. I'm discovering the world of, what people do on social media. And I'm kind of going, oh, there's something really interesting out there. I also love my career. Like, how can I combine the two?
Yeah, makes sense.
How can I bring the two together? So I go back to Lloyd's after 6 months break. Is not really a break, but being off, and things have changed, right? 6 months is a long time. Things have changed. There's new projects. I've been asked to lead another really exciting big project, but something just doesn't feel right anymore for me. And there's this thing of the back of my head of like, I just want to find this balance between career but also giving back. And throughout that process, I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm doing a coaching course and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to actually leave. It was a really tough decision because I genuinely loved working at Lloyd's. It's been absolutely incredible for my career. But I'm a big believer of if something doesn't feel aligned, just follow it. So I leave Lloyd's and I take another 4 months off to go back and see my family. By that time, I haven't seen my family for a year and a half. So, I go back home, spend time with my family. And kind of this is the second point where I've said earlier about this personal brand and connections and network kicks in. People obviously know about my situation. A lot of people know about it. I'm quite open about it. And I start getting contacts and people start, I'm going for coffees and kind of thinking, what do I do next? And someone said to me, well, you're good at change. You like projects. Like there's this world of consulting out there.
Yeah.
Right? And the beauty about it is you get to pick and choose the projects and you work flexibly. So you don't have to do this, 5 days a week. You could do a bit more flexibility there so you can start thinking what else you want to do with your time. So I collaborate with Sea Change. So Sea Change is a niche consulting firm focusing on change. And I become an associate there and sort of start delivering programs through Sea Change, which again is really exciting because you go in, it's a very different mindset from a corporate role to consultant. Because even if you come in as a consultant with a few other people, it's you and only you, right? And like you come in to deliver. But it's also really good because I come in, once someone in Lloyd said to me, I thought it was at the beginning, it wasn't compliment, it was compliment. He said to me, you get bored. Like, we need to keep you entertained. What he meant is, I go in, I do, and I got to move on to the next thing. Consulting is brilliant for that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So I start consulting, and I start doing a bit of coaching about kind of confidence and building kind of the career. I focus more around having anxiety, stress, working a lot, waking up middle of the night and, writing stuff on your laptop and just looking after your health a bit more. So I work with few women across the market. It happens by chance that I work with women. And I'm start thinking, this is interesting. But one-to-one coaching on a full-time basis is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I keep on searching. I do through keynote speaking, I do a few webinars, and I'm starting to see this trend whereby there's a lot of talk around, there's not enough female talent in the market, and there is, the women don't get the opportunities. But you start meeting women, and it's not as bad as it sounds. Yes, statistically, we still have work to do, but actually there's a lot of voices and a lot of role models around. They just don't have a platform to shine and kind of showcase. And they may be they may be successful slightly different to what traditionally we saw success. And this is post-COVID life, so we're all kind of questioning what is success and what is work. So I find my thing, and and I start thinking about the podcast while still doing consulting. I do have my moment with KPMG. I've always had this thing of the back of my head. I've always worked with Big Fours as a client. I've never worked in a Big Four. So again, through connections, I had a great opportunity to work on a project with Big Four. Great, fantastic. Decided not necessarily for me. So I kind of go back to consulting and then finding clients and working with clients, mainly working with Sea Change or clients of my own. And that just gives me the flexibility to be able to build something else.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Very cool. And what is sort of like when you set off with the 100 Women in Insurance podcast, like what was the ambition you wanted to achieve? What were the sort of objectives you wanted to deliver on?
So it's funny because originally I had an idea to do Women Can Do It All, and Women Can Do It Too. And the idea behind it was I met some women that were doing work that traditionally would never be a kind of a female type of job. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. So you can do it. Like, it's all right. You can do it, you know? But then I thought, why do I branch out of insurance? Like, there's so many incredible people to share their stories.
Yeah.
Like, let's stick to this. My mission basically is I'm very passionate about showing the variety of roles. I think we, as an industry, we are very good, increasingly better in attracting talent, but we put them on the underwriting and broking route only. And I just think I've worked with a lot of young people in the market, and they are on those paths, and you speak to them, they're quite unhappy. It's not really their skill set, but they don't know what else to do. So they leave. And then you lose the talent, right? So, and then the other group of people is people that, and it is predominantly women stereotypically, but it's certainly changing and shifting. Age kind of 30 to 40, there's statistic out there, the kind of 45%, 47% of women actually leave the industry because they have a break in their career, they come back, and it's just not necessarily a thing for them anymore. So again, if you speak to these people that kind of returning and you say, I know you used to do this, but there's this out there that would interest you. That's your skill set. So the goal was variety of roles, really showcase people that just what are the roles out there. There's some really cool roles in this industry, right? That you just don't know about. Celebrate women. So actually show that there are women and they are successful, and that give the opportunity to have a platform, and have a platform where you can actually share your voice as a professional person, not necessarily just on diversity topic, but actually show up as your professional person. And then the third one was kind of just sharing career tips, sharing kind of thoughts on the industry, sharing how it's reshaping, thinking outside of a box. You know, some of the topics that really surprised me have been topics where flexible working, part-time working in a very different aspect to what we understand, changes in policies, all these kind of topics. So that's been my goal. And when I set out, someone said to me, this is before even first episode launched, someone said, what would make your podcast, like what would make you think, okay, I've succeeded, you know? The number 100 was put on there because it just felt like a cool thing to achieve. And it was like, if I can get 100 women, in my mind, as I think quite a woke person when it comes to the female talent, I thought it would be hard to get 100 women. But I'll tell you in a minute how it kind of looked like. But the success piece in my mind was, if I get one person contact me off the back of podcast and say, do you know what? I've applied for that job. Or do you know what? I actually found that mentor, or, you know, whatever it is, but they've actually took an action and changed something. Good. So that's how it started.
Very cool. Very cool. I love how clear your vision was as well. You know, you explained how it came about, but to start your podcast with, like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to interview 100 women in insurance, and you're more than a quarter of the way there, right?
Quarter, just over a quarter. It's until summer next year when we get the 100. So
wow.
It's going to come quick.
Cool.
It does. What will you do then?
It's a question a lot of people ask me.
100 women in reinsurance.
Yeah, there you go. I feel a collaboration coming on.
Exactly.
You know what? Let's get there, and then we'll see from there.
We do the same with we care a lot about talent and how the industry attracts and retains talent and things. And I think you're right, exposing the diversity of things you can do, so people who have all manner of backgrounds feel like they have opportunities. And I think presenting role models is super important. People who can look around and see, oh, that person's just like me, whether it was where they grew up or, you know, their skin color, gender, whatever it might be. There's this sense of, oh, people who are like me are there too. And I think that's a really important step at the sort of top of the funnel of talent. Like, how do you get the people early and young looking at this as a space to go? And then from there, I think the problem at like the leadership level begins to sort itself out a bit more naturally. But if we don't get like the top of the funnel and like a better diversity in the door when they're young, it's going to be much more difficult for us to solve it, which we still have to work on as well, but solve it at leadership and other types of things going forward.
I agree. And I think there's also, I feel like there's a bit of a stigma, right? Unless there's a lot of effort given to people that are identified as the future leaders, right? If you're big corporate, you're the future leader, and is great. I've been on that path. You get to go to so many amazing dinners, conferences, galas, whatever. Brilliant. But that's not for everybody. Yeah. But actually, the fact that you're not on that future leader doesn't necessarily mean you can't be successful and you're not needed in the market. You are very much so. And I agree with you, the role modeling, like, you know, looking at you guys, for example, you are leaders, you have your business, but actually you've taken a different path. You stepped away from that, like, you know, there's a path here to follow. And I think that's so inspiring. And it would be inspiring to so many people looking at your story. So it's seeing, you know, there's so many avenues and ways to succeed. And I think that kind of mentality that I certainly grew up with, that you get a job, you become a manager, you then manage people, then you become a more manager. And then like, you're never successful unless you're a CEO and you have your corner office, right? That was now I'm like, is that success? It is for some. Yeah. But there's so many other ways to be successful. Yeah.
And it's great that you've got, I guess, so many other people who are happy. I mean, it depends what we do as our metrics for success, right? But there's so many other people who are able to come on and share their story, their unique story, and not just the good bits, but also the bad bits, and where they've, you know, been and where they are now and where they're heading. Like, everyone's going to find themselves in those kind of positions at some point in a career, you know, and being able to hear from others and how they've grappled with obstacles or lent into opportunities is inspiring and gives courage.
It is, and it's kind of going back to that being woke and thinking, you know, I know female talent, but 100 will be hard to find. Because I've been playing with this idea for a good couple of months before it launched, right? And then I was like, right, I'm just going to post on LinkedIn that I'm doing it. So just keep myself, obviously no one's going to read it, no one's going to care. But in my mind, I feel like I'm accountable that I'm starting it in September. Yeah. So I post this and I go, you know, finally it's happening. This podcast is launching, 100 Women Insurance. This is what I'm going to do. Off it goes. I get 60 applications within 3.5 days. Yeah, right? My inbox explodes and I'm like, whoa. Yeah. And they are just incredible people I've never heard of before. You know, some people, I know, but a lot. I get people from California, from Australia, you know. I'm like, what is this? Yeah.
That's validation for you.
I was like, I guess I got to do it now. Yeah. So one of the things I've learned through that process is the opportunity to share the story, and the ambition to be a role model, even for one person, is actually really out there. And when you give people opportunity to speak and they interested and they want to do it, and the female talent, I spoke to someone yesterday. I'm planning the next few guests, and I just said to them, it's getting to a point where it's so hard to choose now, because it is so incredible how much talent is out there. You just don't see it and don't hear that talent. Yeah. And, you know, partially is stereotypically and, you know, kind of not everyone, but a lot of females are kind of, I'm getting my job done and then I move on. It's like, I'm not here to brag is the common term. I'm not here to be in the magazines. I'm not here to talk about it. Yeah. So you don't see them, right? But they're getting the job done. Yeah. But there's another element where a lot of talent, female talent, doesn't get invited to panels, doesn't get invited onto podcasts, doesn't get invited by journalists. There's a group of handful of people, and I get it. I spoke to events organizers about it, and they were like, listen, it's hard. If I have a keynote speaker that presents well, obviously I'm going to invite that keynote speaker and over and over. I'm not going to test someone new. Yeah. So there's, you know, I get it both sides. Yeah.
How do you tend to manage that conflict, I guess, between, on the one hand, these incredible senior professionals who don't want to be reduced to their gender, you know, as their main identity, but on the other hand, have this opportunity to inspire and to be a role model?
It's such a brilliant question, because so often I hear people saying, so often people will message me and say, I think you should interview this person. And I always go back, well, tell that person and tell them to contact me. Yeah. Because it's beautiful that people try and nominate, but that person needs to want to share their story. And you're right, there's a lot of people, I spoke to on a recent episode with Hannah Pring, we spoke about it, that some people are just tired of being they don't want to be the token person. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want the fact that they are female being like the first thing under there. But then on the other hand, you know, I spoke to another lady where she's kind of got promoted through her career and she's now senior, and she doesn't see herself as that senior. She still looks up to other female talent. And then recently she realized that she's actually a role model to other women and men. And she's like, I don't know if I want that. I don't, you know, I just want to turn up and do my job. I don't want to have to go and speak at events and stuff. So I think it's challenging. Yeah. And I would never push someone to be that person. I think there is enough people that want to hold that. And it's not easy. You know, I've been told before when I was kind of starting this path, I've been told, you sure you want to be that woman? You know, you sure you want to be that, have that badge next to you? Yeah. You know, what are you sure all the clients will like that? So it's not, it has two sides to the story, right? Yeah. And it's, It is, to me, it's not frustrating because I'm always like, if that gets me in the room and it gets me talking and gets me have a difficult conversation, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But some people hate being contacted just because they're women in a room.
Yeah.
So you gotta balance that.
Yeah. I think it's probably helpful. I mean, it'd be good to hear your thoughts on it, but the fact that you're not standing up and saying, hey, I'm a woman in insurance and this is what it means to be a woman in insurance, but rather you're saying, look at this variety. You know, there's no such thing as being a woman in insurance. It's like, these are amazing insurance people who happen to be women.
Yeah.
Look how many of them there are. Look how many different stories there are to tell. That must be
It's
compelling.
It's in, so I'm only 26 episode 27 next week into a podcast. And to your point, I think I started more with look at these women, the first few episodes. And then I've realized that actually I've started to get men contacting me and going, oh my God, this content was so helpful. Like, you know, I'm really now thinking differently of my career. And I'm like going, right, yeah. Because it doesn't matter that it's women. Like to some it matters because they're looking for a role model, but actually the content is really good. And it's a different perspective to what maybe some people have been used to hearing. So what I have done over time is I've actually put more pressure around topic that's being covered rather than the fact that it's a woman. Yeah, I can't move away from the title. It gives away. But for anyone that can look past the title and actually think of a content, and as soon as I start pushing more the content rather than the word woman, I can see my statistics that the numbers are starting to increase. I'm about 30%. I mean, you know, statistics of podcasts are not the easiest to get, right? But the ones that I do have, 30% of men actually now seem to be listening, where it started with about 5%. And I've had people contact me and say, oh, my manager, who's male, recommended your podcast because he's listened and he said it was brilliant and this content was really good. So, yeah, it's really, it's shifted my mind actually on how to think about those stuff.
No, it's super interesting. And I think you're exactly right when you think about episodes you have like on imposter syndrome and similar, like these things are universally applicable regardless. It's like if you don't feel like you belong at this level you have now attained, that applies. And that happens regardless of gender or race or anything else, but is something that is transferable to a younger generation. So it's super important to lean into topics like that, regardless of the lens that you approach it from, right? Because I think it's an important conversation to have.
Exactly. And we all have careers and we all, you know, trying to do our best and we all trying to identify this, what success is. We all increasingly, men and women, you know, balance the work life as well. One of my recent guests, she said, you know, she's a female, she has 2 children, and even she said to me, it's on the podcast, so it's not like I'm disclosing something, but she said to me, she was like, even I, as a person that understands the importance of work-life balance, she's interviewed a male candidate, and the candidate was like, by the way, I always need to make sure that on this day and that day I leave earlier because I need to pick up my child from nursery. And even she had that moment of like, oh, do you? And then she thought, no, this is brilliant. Yes, of course. But even she had that, you know, so there's a lot of work that we have to do to bring that equality on both sides.
It's quite interesting watching things like paternity policies change around the market as well.
This time has flown by. We are all out, but we will put a link to your podcast in the show notes for people who want to lean into like tons of inspirational people on the podcast. Follow Sandra's. It's amazing. Thank you for joining us on the Reinsurance podcast, and we'll dive into yours next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supercede.co.